Welcome to the new podcast. Today we're joined with Aiden, Arjan, and Quentin, and today we're going to be doing these next few weeks we're going to be doing a series of podcasts about globalization, a phenomena which has been increasing and really developing over the last few years and centuries. First of all, to start off, what does globalization mean to you? What is globalization?
I think literally, it has a lot of factors. Globalization, how economically advanced a country is, how social and culturally influencing the country is, in terms of like geopolitical stance, if they're a member of any international corporations such as NATO or like the UN and stuff like this. I think that is really like the literal definition and what really like makes a country very globalized. But I think in terms of like everyday speech, we also refer to countries being globalized if they're just very well known for what they are. So, like Italy, for example, for having pizza, or France for like the Eiffel Tower, a historical landmark, that kind of thing. So, there are also countries where that don't necessarily have all those aspects, but there's one particular thing that stands out. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the economic inter
Interdependence.
interconnectedness. I would say, obviously, it's all about how trade and investment they flow around the world. Um, no, it's not just a market in your own country; it's about a market everywhere. The information and media, all of it is transferred really fast,
Mm.
and people are much more diverse. We are much more culturally influenced.
Yeah. Also, in terms of technological advancement, maybe also in medicine, for example. We already know that Europe has very strong medicine, such as the UK. I mean, also you can see for like for universities, they have the highest grade requirements because they need the best of the best for the faculty in medicine. So that also shows that they're so advanced in the field of medicine and technology that their standards are just so much higher.
Yeah, I agree. Next point, I think we can elaborate a lot on this point. Our next point is going to be, so what, in your opinion, how has the world changed due to globalization? No, it can be embassies, different areas such as Chinatown. I mean, we're in the Netherlands, one of the most globalized countries in the world. So, moving on. In your opinion, how do you think the world has changed due to globalization? Economically, socially, technologically?
For me, the main thing I think is the scale. I think when you look back over the past decades, the world was so much at a much smaller scale. I mean, the world seemed bigger because it was so difficult for transportation to move from one country to another by ship. It would take days, weeks, even to travel such long distances. Now I think maximum, you have two flights. If you really want to go far. So I think in terms of scale, it's become much easier. Transport, communication. Before it was a lot more letter because technology has advanced so much because economy has risen so far in so many countries that I think this is the main thing, the networking, the ability to communicate on different regions.
The rapid flow of
And I
information.
think, yeah, I think the rapid development in the technology we have, and the way we're able to share this throughout the world, I think that's what has made. For example, you were underlining the fact that you need two flights to go to a very far point. Yeah, and the reason this is because we've been able to share the information, the technology we had, and we've been able to develop in different areas of the world and come together and then share this. I mean, I think that's a massive point to make with globalization. I think that's why our world is so developed now. It's just because we were able to share our information.
Yeah, absolutely. And also when countries develop and their economy develops with it, you have also the opportunity for these different inventions and discoveries to be made, such as the telephone, or much later, like quite recently actually, the mobile phones, and long distance calling. Nowadays you can FaceTime someone in Australia, for example. Although it would be a different time for them, you can just see each other, and it's amazing to see how far humanity has come as a cause of this.
Yeah. And this
Yeah.
is
Oh, sorry.
no continue.
So I was gonna say also increased, kind of what Aidan was going at, the social connectivity, where it connects people from diverse backgrounds, and a perfect example is our school.
Yeah.
You're Italian, I'm Spanish, and you're French. If we didn't go to the school, we probably would have not been as connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on your your environment from where you're from, because obviously if you live in the middle of nowhere, it might be more difficult for you to open to different cultures because you're used to the same one the whole time. Yeah, I think that's also a big point about globalization. For example, Chinatown, as we talked about, or we might not have talked about, I don't know.
Well, it's a good example of
Chinatown, it's all over the world in major cities, and it's big communities which come together and they like to share their cultures, their food, what makes up their culture, which I think is a great way to learn new things and to share experiences.
So what we could say is that maybe globalization has allowed for migration to occur, and different cultures being introduced to different countries, and celebrating those cultures, such as actually using it to economic benefit, such as international schools. You have children from all over the world working together, and you can see how efficient, because we share so many different things, that it becomes so interesting, and it's a very important part of your life to really be made aware of from all these cultures, languages, heritages.
Yeah, and because we live in such a diverse society, especially in the Netherlands where we're very globalized, I think later, for example, when we're gonna have to go to when we're gonna have to maybe move out of the country to go to another school or to for university, it might be easier for us to socialize or to adapt to a different culture because we were open as children to so many different cultures.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, I'll forever be grateful for this. I think it's great that we're able to live in such a culturally diverse society where we get to know so many different people and learn so many different cultures.
We can take the Netherlands as an example. I mean, what has really made it so globalized? What do we think? Like, is it because I think we see the small rich countries are really the most globalized. I mean, you see it in Europe, countries like the Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, Luxembourg, or all these countries, because it's more of a fact that they have to be globalized in order to keep up with their economy and stay relevant worldwide. So I think definitely the smaller countries, it's more of the fact that they have to become globalized, and that's why they are the most globalized. They need to have access to trade routes because they're less self-reliant on resources. And larger countries such as the USA, I mean, they already have everything. They don't have everything, but they have a rich resource of the things that they need. So that's why we can say that these are slightly less globalized, even though they are very powerful economically and geopolitically.
As you said, economically, if we take Luxembourg for example,
Your favorite country?
Yeah, it's a landlocked country, so they don't have that many solutions, and obviously they decided to go into banking, and that's what makes their economy basically.
Yeah, it's a physical aspects. So it's quite interesting to see because depending on its physical state of the country. So as you said, the landlocked countries, they know that they don't have access to the sea. They don't make use of that. So they adapt to it and they create ways in order to generate their economy. So like banking, for example, in Switzerland, or they make use of their natural beauty with the ski resorts and this kind of thing. And and then you have countries like coastal countries, for example. I mean, you have the US, the East and West Coast. They have access to the whole ocean to the whole world, you know. So they make use of that, and then in turn also all the other resources they have in their own country. So we see how humanity has adapted to the physical situation of the country and managed to become globalized because of that.
Yep. I totally agree. And in terms of, let's talk about migration. Um, there's obviously internal migration within the country, but how do you think there's only positives with the fact that migrants are coming in, which obviously it can be a good thing for globalization, but do you think there's only positives to this?
To migration.
So for cultures to become more diverse, because for example, from people from war in Syria, they might be coming to your country. Do you think it's just, even though your country might become more globalized and more culturally diverse, do you think there's only positives?
No.
I mean, there is potential for them to bring a lot of positives. I mean, it depends. I mean, we can't take away the human factor. I mean, and humanity, like, if there is war in their country, these refugees, they do need somewhere to be. But in terms of contributing to the economy, I think there is great potential for migration, that they can really contribute to the economy and showcase what they have brought from their own country.
Yeah.
So, but of course, we see still that refugees and this kind of thing, they don't always contribute to the economy, which, in a lot of cases, is not their fault.
Among deforestation and pollution, do you guys know any other environmental problems that could arise?
Probably the lack of sustainable development. I mean, if you have practices that use a lot of non-renewable resources, fossil fuels, I mean, this will lead to pollution and further deforestation. But I think what would you guys say? Would you think that the more globalized countries would have less of this pollution and less and more sustainable development goals and ways, or how do you think it ties into globalization?
If we look at the most globalized countries, it's Belgium first, then Ireland, and then the Netherlands, right? Something in that order. If we look at the COF index, and if we look at the proportion of CO2 emitted compared to big countries like China, they definitely don't produce as much. They're much more sustainable, even though China's hopefully they're trying to move to a much more green economy, but we know that they produce probably the most CO2 in the world with countries like India, USA, and but if we think about more equity, how much they produce for the country they are, I mean, they probably do. The countries probably do emit a lot. Even though in the Netherlands we have practices such as riding a bike, which is quite often, which obviously is a green way to move around.
Sorry for that brief interruption, but what I was going to say was that globalized countries could help or assist these countries that lack globalization and environmental well-being knowledge to improve on their, as I said before, environmental well-being.
They can provide aid, the globalized countries.
Yeah.
Is it globalized countries or more the economically developed countries which are supposed to do that? I think globalization is more about coming together and making policies and laws together to prevent these things from happening.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because I mean, the more globalized countries, they have more geopolitical power and they're more involvement in it. So they can be part of these schemes and these laws.
But then you need people to stick with these laws.
Yeah, to fully ratify. That's another problem. They can sign these treaties and whatever, but the countries that actually ratify, those are going to make the difference.
Exactly.
So they can sign it all they want. They haven't fully ratified it yet.
Yep. On that note, we're going to end it with today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed.
Thank you for watching, everyone, for today's episode on globalization. Tune in for the second episode where we will talk about more the economy side of things, right?
Yeah,
Economic ideals.
Side of globalization.
Yes.
Yes.